I'm Katie Couric. Tonight, Senator Larry Craig, caught in a sex sting, says the only thing he did wrong was plead guilty.
I chose to plead guilty to a lesser charge in hopes of making it go away.
Fellow Republicans call for an ethics committee review. Also tonight, a shocking look inside the Boy Scouts of America.
A scout leader was being tossed out for child molestation at the rate of 1 every 3 days.
In New Orleans, broken levees and 2 years later, broken promises and misplaced money to rebuild the city.
You all ever worried that New Orleans is just never going to be the same.
And it was a marvelous night for a moon dance with the Earth for a partner.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Hello, everyone. The story exploded on front pages all over America today. Another member of Congress caught up in a scandal, a sex scandal. Republican Senator Larry Craig caught in a police sting at the Minneapolis airport. He pleaded guilty to disorderly conduct, but now on second thought, he says his conduct was just fine. In any case, fellow Republicans are calling for an investigation. We caution you, there are graphic details in this report from Cheryl Atkinson.
Late this afternoon in his home state of Idaho with his wife of 24 years by his side, Senator Larry Craig did a 180, recanting his guilty plea in a lewd conduct arrest.
While I was not involved in any inappropriate conduct at the Minneapolis airport or anywhere else, I chose to plead guilty to a lesser charge in hopes of making it go away. Let me be clear, I am not gay. I never have been gay.
Craig is the first sitting U.S. Senator in recent memory to have his own mugshot. Sergeant Dave Carstnia made the arrest, charging him with disorderly conduct and interfering with privacy. The police report says Craig repeatedly peered at the undercover officer through the crack in the door of the bathroom stall, using hand signals to indicate he wanted sex. Then went into the next stall and touched his foot against the officers and used more gestures. Craig later said he was just using a wide stance, but Carstnia replied with his own hand signal, showing his police ID under the door. After his arrest, Craig allegedly showed his Senate business card and said, "What do you think about that?" Craig now says in trying to keep the whole thing quiet, he agreed to plead to a charge of disorderly conduct, though he wasn't guilty.
I wasn't eager to share this failure, but I should have anyway, because I am not gay.
Not being gay is important to Craig as a father of 3 who opposes gay marriage. He was elected by conservative Idaho voters to 5 House terms and 3 in the Senate. Craig has found himself denying lewd behavior as far back as 1982, when CBS News broke stories on a congressional page sex scandal.
Have you been approached yourself by congressmen?
Yes.
The story didn't implicate Craig or any other member of Congress by name, but Craig was the only one to issue an immediate denial. 25 years later, he's in the same boat. Today, he said his only transgression was keeping the arrest to himself.
I take full responsibility for a lapse in judgment I made in attempting to handle this matter myself.
The bathroom charge may have been a misdemeanor, but it's a political felony. The GOP is already under a cloud with FBI investigations of Congressman Rick Renzi, John Doolittle, Don Young, and Senator Ted Stevens.
The Republican brand at the moment is very weak. And what this does, this adds to the buzz about Republicans and what do Republicans believe, and are Republicans hypocrites?
Craig held an important position in Mitt Romney's presidential campaign. He resigned from it this week, and Senate Republicans themselves have called for an ethics investigation. Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Now to disturbing revelations about the Boy Scouts of America. It turns out that over the last 60 years, at least 5,100 adult leaders were kicked out of the Scouts because of allegations of sexual abuse. 2 victims broke their silence and spoke to our Sandra Hughes.
Matt Stewart blames the Boy Scouts of America for his lost childhood.
I believe the first time I was molested was at the age of either 6 or 7. I was molested all the way up until I was 18 years old.
Stewart and his brother Tom were sexually abused by their assistant scoutmaster.
The nightmares are still very real, even, 25, 30 years later.
Former troop leader Bruce Phelps admitted what he did under oath.
On those occasions, would you have sexual contact with one and then the other?
Yes.
Thousands of secret Boy Scout files through 2005 were turned over to the brothers' attorney as part of their lawsuit.
I was blown away. It was staggering.
Tim Kosnoff analyzed the numbers and came to this shocking conclusion. Before 1991,
a scout leader was being tossed out for child molestation at the rate of 1 every 3 days. Post 1991, the rate was 1 every 2 days.
that includes people suspected of abuse. The Boy Scouts of America would not confirm how many troop leaders they've had to dismiss, but released this statement. The total number of individuals in the file is an extremely small percentage of the tens of millions who have served in the Boy Scouts of America since 1910. Criminal background checks are now required for its leaders, and adults are prohibited from being alone with a child.
Don't tell anybody what happened, Brad, okay?
The organization claims its child abuse prevention program is the best in the country. However, in 2005, the man who ran that program was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for trafficking in child pornography on the internet.
The Boy Scouts of America is not a safe place for your boy.
These days, the entire first chapter of the Boy Scout Handbook is dedicated to child abuse prevention. In it, children and parents are told, although scouting law emphasizes obedience, if an adult asks a scout to do something uncomfortable, that's a rule that's okay to break. Sandra Hughes, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Overseas, shock is turning to anger tonight in Greece as wildfires continue to burn through the ancient countryside. Firefighters and rescue crews have been waging an incredible battle, but many say their government's response has been too little, too late. Here's Richard Roth.
Covered by ash and wrapped in smoke, what used to be an olive grove is now the image of a nightmare. And when fire raced up the mountain to a place called Phrygia, it seemed certain the village was doomed. Surrounded by flames, villagers moved to a basketball court where a helicopter hovered to begin pulling them out. And those who weren't leaving, this woman said, would begin to search for the dead. But the flames and the winds that have been driving them across southern Greece aren't just hard to control, they're erratic and unpredictable. Call it fate or good fortune, it's how Phrygia was saved, when the fire simply stopped along a line of cypress trees. Even so, the government should have sent in airplanes earlier, this villager says, to drop water before the fire spread. That anger's echoed across the country. In remote places where there's been little help fighting fires, there are bitter complaints that it's all the government's fault. There's not a thing to say, as this farmer put it. Our government did nothing. Greek officials blame arson for the widespread fires, but whatever caused them, the government's response to the emergency has now become the country's other burning issue. Richard Roth, CBS News, London.
In Iraq, a religious festival turned into chaos today. More than 50 people were killed when rival Shiite militias opened fire on each other in Karbala. Security forces cut short the celebration and ordered nearly 1 million Shiite pilgrims to leave the city. Meanwhile, Iran's president declared today that America's political influence in Iraq is falling apart and said his government is ready to fill any power vacuum. As for President Bush, in a speech today in Nevada, he said pulling U.S. forces out of Iraq would allow extremists to take over. Here at home, mixed economic news tonight. For the first time in 6 years, the poverty rate is down slightly. In 2006, 12.3% of Americans lived in poverty, down from 12.6% in 2005. Poverty level income for a family of 4 is $20,400 a year. Hardly enough for food and housing, much less other items like health insurance. And as Wyatt Andrews reports, more people are going without.
How are you It's tonight? The highest number of uninsured Americans in 20 years. 47 million without health insurance, and dozens of them come in every day to the free clinic in Arlington, Virginia. For house cleaner Maria Carvalho, who makes $8,000 a year, the clinic is her only option.
What if this clinic did not exist?
I'm dying.
You would die?
I died. Yeah, because I was so sick.
Of the 47 million uninsured, 8.7 million are children, a jump of more than 7% in 1 year. The numbers are rising mostly because employers are dialing back. In 2000, more than 64% of Americans got insurance through their employer. Last year, that percentage fell below 60.
This decline in employer-based coverage is happening because of cost. More and more employers these days, struggling to stay afloat or profitable, cannot afford the rising expense of health insurance.
Hi. Nice
At
to
the
see you.
clinic, Director Nancy Paulison says most of the uninsured and most people in poverty are working.
Maybe both parents working, 2 or 3 kids, and they can't get health insurance. They can't, even if it's offered, they couldn't possibly afford it.
The census brought mixed reviews on poverty itself. While the percentage of Americans in poverty fell, the number of people held steady at 36.5 million.
Take a deep breath, sir.
This free clinic is a snapshot of the income gap in America. Everyone here is a resident of Arlington, which is listed in the census report as one of the richest counties in the country. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Arlington, Virginia.
On Wall Street today, stock prices dropped sharply. The Dow lost 280 points. The markets were worried about the credit crunch and the overall economy. There is much more CBS News ahead. Later, the Earth, Sun, and Moon get together to cook up an astronomical delight. But up next, it's been 2 years since Katrina. What happened to the promises to rebuild New Orleans? We'll show you in a moment. It was 2 years ago tomorrow that Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast. Tonight, a CBS News poll finds almost 6 in 10 Americans still have a fair or great amount of confidence in the federal government's ability to respond to a national disaster. 39% have little or no confidence. So how are things going in New Orleans 2 years after the storm? Tonight, we begin a special series, The Katrina Recovery. Follow the money. Katrina and her aftermath caused an estimated $150 billion in Gulf-wide damage and turned this jewel of a city into one giant disaster zone.
Where's FEMA? Where's the mayor? Please, somebody. We need some help out here.
Frustrated by the slow pace of recovery, some decided to take matters into their own hands, like Women of the Storm, an organization 600 strong that's conducted tours for 187 members of Congress.
No one can understand the magnitude of the devastation or the challenges unless they see it block by block, mile by mile.
So we went to see for ourselves. We found the city has less than 2/3 the population it once did, but the now infamous Lower 9th Ward, horribly flooded when the levees burst, is still a vision of devastation. New Orleans East, where few still venture, is no better. There were 32 apartments in this complex in New Orleans East before Katrina hit, and as you can see, what has happened since is very little. All that's left is the shell of a building, bricks, mortar, 2x4s. We found out there are as many as 120,000 buildings still needing demolition, but the federal program to handle that will end in October. Neighborhoods that look like this on the day of the storm are only beginning to come back. When will this be back in business?
We have no idea, but in order for these shops to open, they need people. And in order for the people to come back, they need homes and houses. And that hadn't happened.
After the hurricane, President Bush promised to rebuild.
Throughout the area hit by the hurricane, we will do what it takes.
But has the president kept that promise? $116 billion recovery dollars have been earmarked for the Gulf region, almost $60 billion of it to Louisiana alone. Nearly $20 billion was spent in the state on disaster relief. Another $13.5 billion was paid in flood insurance. Finally, $25.5 billion was allocated for rebuilding. Yet of the $116 billion promised, only $6.78 billion has actually been spent on rebuilding New Orleans.
The state have tried so hard to prevent even the appearance of any graft or corruption that they've just put layer upon layer on the individual to go through these hoops.
And it's really resulted in the money never getting to the people who need it.
That is so true.
Less than half of the city's public schools have reopened. Many are worried about a healthcare system still in critical condition and skyrocketing crime. As for those famous levees, they're still being rebuilt at an expected cost of $15 billion, complete with maps predicting future flood risks. But Donald Powell, the federal czar appointed by President Bush to oversee the recovery, concedes the project won't be completed until 2011, 4 hurricane seasons away.
These maps will show at what level of risk they are after these levee systems have been improved. And that's powerful. Information is powerful.
If I looked at those maps, I may not want to come back till 2011.
That's a decision you would have to make.
Powell blames state and local officials for not keeping the money flowing. Those officials complain about the federal government. While the finger pointing continues, even the most enthusiastic boosters admit if there is a comeback, it will take years. Do you all ever worry that New Orleans is just never going to be the same?
Oh, Katie, it's not going to be the same, but it is going to come back.
And the rebuilding is being seen by many people I spoke to as an opportunity to fix a number of problems in public housing, education, and health care that existed before Katrina. Meanwhile, about that skyrocketing crime rate, the federal government is spending tens of millions of dollars to make New Orleans safe, but crime is worse than ever. We'll have that story tomorrow. And when we come back, it could make flight delays a thing of the past. A sneak peek at the new air traffic control system. At any given time, some 5,000 planes are in the air over the U.S., guided by an air traffic control system developed more than 40 years ago. This week, the government will award a $1 billion contract for a new satellite system that promises fewer delays. But that's just for starters. Here's Nancy Cordes.
Satellite-based GPS has been guiding drivers, ships, even hikers for years now.
In a half mile, make a left turn.
But old-fashioned radar still guides the nation's airplanes.
We're operating old 1960s technology, and you can't just keep patching it up. You're going to have to make a total switch in the system.
Every control tower, every jet will have to be retrofitted with GPS at an estimated cost to taxpayers, airlines, and the flying public of $20 billion.
Everybody wants it, but nobody wants to pay for it.
The payoff, says aviation expert Peter Goltz, will be accuracy. Radar often requires flights to follow a jagged path from one radar station to the next. GPS allows planes to signal their locations from anywhere, enabling them to travel more direct routes, saving time and fuel.
You keep the high level of safety, and you're just getting better utilization of the airspace. And that's really the wave of the future.
It would also allow airplanes to take off and land closer together, meaning less time sitting in line on the runway, less time circling in the air above the airport. The shipping giant UPS has already begun installing the technology on its cargo jets.
Now I'm just going to range in.
But the high cost and the hype have turned some airlines and air traffic controllers into skeptics.
You want to double the aircraft in the air? Do it. You just need more controllers and more runways to land them. Otherwise, it doesn't matter what kind of whiz-bang stuff you got.
The FAA says the only alternative to upgrading is gridlock. Nancy Cordes, CBS News, Washington.
In NASA's Love Triangle case, former astronaut Lisa Nowak will pursue an insanity defense. In court papers, she claims she suffered from depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and insomnia when she allegedly attacked a romantic rival. Coming up next, a night for romance that comes along only once in a red moon. Finally tonight, we on Earth have always been fascinated by the moon, and some believe its power over us. In the movie Moonstruck, we're told the moon draws the woman to the man. So romantic. Well, the moon was a big draw last night, as John Blackstone reports.
The full moon has quite a reputation for romance, and overnight it seduced many into leaving the comfort of their beds to stare into the night sky.
I took my nap before I came, and I was like, I'm ready now.
Ready to watch an unusually long lunar eclipse, the Earth's shadow falling across the moon.
Every time it happens, I just get goosebumps about them.
There were viewing parties all along the eclipse path, from Sydney, Australia, to the hills above Oakland, California.
I'm the Astro Wizard.
There, Dave Rodriguez of the Chabot Space and Science Center was master of ceremonies.
The moon is moving from right to left, and it's moving into the Earth's shadow.
A celestial dance that can inspire poetry in anyone. When the sun, earth, and moon all end up in a straight line, the Earth blocks the sunlight that makes the moon shine.
It's certainly a romantic object, and I'm a romantic person.
Indeed, the moon's power to arouse love seemed heightened by the eclipse.
We've been looking forward to this all week, actually.
It's so romantic here that when the eclipse is full, the moon begins to blush. It turns red when the eclipse is total, because the only light reaching it now comes from wherever the sun is rising or setting on Earth. This is the real magic. All the sunsets on Earth.
All the sunsets and all the sunrises, all at one moment.
It lasted for 90 minutes. Then the shadow moved off, and the moon seemed to shine brighter than ever. John Blackstone, CBS News, Oakland.
And that's the CBS Evening News. I'm Katie Couric. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.